What's up, everybody? My name is Bryce Koon. We're live here a little bit after time, but hey, I appreciate you staying tuned. Almost a full 10 minutes, Ralph. A full 10 minutes late to the show. We can get more on the reasons why later in the football season. But hey, we will. We're gonna talk tonight. Ralph Leary in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in. Section 103. Take your time, Bryce. Still go live as long as you can. Get it working before Sea Dog stream ends. Appreciate you. 45-17, Georgia Tech big winners on Saturday. I rewatched this game, or I watched it for the first time and then rewatched it today. I watched it in the wee hours of the morning, somewhere in the vicinity of in between Pelham and UAB, and took away a couple of things. And the fact that this Georgia Tech offense is really, 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 really fun to watch. I absolutely love the fact that this offense is starting to turn a corner in what we saw from the Boston College game. You were hoping that that would be more of a blip on the radar than what this team was. So I really, really like that. We're going to talk about this game. We're going to talk about Haynes King. We're going to talk about Jamal Haynes, Dante Smith, the thing that we've all been begging for, I think, and I've talked about a lot on this show, is the combination of Jamal Haynes alongside Dante Smith. Jamal Haynes, 17 carries, 119 yards. That's good for 7 per carry, a touchdown. Dante Smith, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had the 33-yarder as his long run, and then Dante Smith, like I said, 15 carries, 78 yards, and the 2 tutties. Look, when you have those guys averaging that, and then you add in Haynes King, who's an option, it's the best version of this offense. It's what Brent Key wanted this team to be, and credit to this staff, credit to a guy like Jeep Wade of being able to work alongside a guy like Buster Faulkner. And look, they are going to have to continue to build the offensive line. I think the exciting thing is this is not the best addition of what this group can look like. And we're going to talk about it in the offseason, hopefully after a bowl game. We're going to get more into that later in the show. We're going to talk a lot about these things because a lot of these guys are coming back. And I think that's what's really, really exciting out of this group is that you have the potential to not only just be good this season and be, get to a bowl game this season, but you've got the chance to really develop and build these guys. And I'm telling you, it's the recipe that we've been waiting for out of this Tech team since 2019, and now it's starting to take form, and I think that's really, really exciting as well. A couple more of the news notes, stats we're going to keep looking at. Eric Singleton Jr., once again, 5 catches, 80 yards. He was targeted 8 times. He had the touchdown catch, too. And this kid, this is what I think about Eric Singleton Jr. I kind of feel like this is a team that, and a guy like Singleton Jr., is that they're not putting a lot on him in necessarily what his route tree needs to be. We know he's a burner, letting him run a lot of fades. We saw the touchdown catch that he had. It was the double move to get past the defensive back and continue to go. I think that what was crazy in this is that you think about what this kid can be. You think about what this group can do. With Eric Singleton Jr., you've shown the rest of the Southeast, the state of Georgia, the high school ranks in recruiting. You've showed them that now you can turn around and start to develop, skill players that have pro potential. Eric Singleton Jr. is already a guy that is going to be, going into next season as, a freshman breakout star, as a guy that you're looking for as a sophomore. There's a lot of things that I think are to be excited about what this group has. Singleton Jr. is a really, really big piece to the puzzle of building the brand of Georgia Tech. Now, obviously, we've joked and we've talked about the NIL aspect, and I kind of got, crucified on social media for saying, look, you better pay the man. And that's a very true thing. We'll talk about that conversation in December. But, Eric Singleton Jr., 80 yards. Then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other guys with 3 catches. Jamal Haynes, 3 catches, 7 yards. Malik Rutherford, 3 for 16. Dylan Leonard, 3 for 17. Dominic Blaylock, 3 for 22. Dante Smith, 3 for 35. Coming into this game, it was known that Virginia struggled to stop the run, and so I liked the game plan coming in of saying, hey, we had success last week. Let's see if we can continue that. And back-to-back games over 300 yards on the ground, it kind of gives you a little bit of feelings, a little bit more reminiscing of what this group was able to do under Paul Johnson. And I think that's something that's really, really cool to see, obviously, with the Georgia Tech team that is very physical up front. And once again, that's who Brent Key wants to be. And as you continue to get better along the offensive front and with some of the running backs, and once again, credit to the staffers, and they know who they are, and a couple of them watched the show, that made the move and stood up on the table for Jamal Haynes to stay on this roster. Absolutely phenomenal young man that just continues to show his athleticism and his burst from that running back position. Want to shout out Dante Smith as well. It's going to be really, really interesting to see, what he continues to do over the course of this season as he gets more touches. When you look at the schedule, we're going to talk about it later in the week. As he gets more touches, man, for me, it's going to be one of those things where it's a lot of mouths to feed back there, but they're finding something that works. I wanted to point this off about the offense before we move over to the defensive side of things. I think, and I want your opinions on this, and so if you're watching this live, make sure you get the comments down in the comment section below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. But if you're also listening after the fact, make sure to head over to our Discord or hit us up at the Crowded Booth on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you might, and give us your thoughts on this. To me, and this is just a personal opinion, I wonder if this team is better off when Haynes King is not the leading rusher. We saw when he was the leading rusher, that they lost to Boston College. Obviously, he did what he did against North Carolina. Is that sustainable? I don't think so. But I think that we saw what this group can be when Haynes King still had 7 carries for 83 yards in this football game. But I think what stood out to me was the fact that you've got a guy like Jamal Haynes that is able to offset that. And now you bring in Dante Smith, and they're still going to use Cooley in certain situations, I think, going forward. But when you look at this as a whole of what they're able to do and how they're able to mix and match with matchups, I really, really love the fact that Haynes King wasn't the leading rusher in this game, because now it allows him they have to respect King as a runner, but they're not necessarily, no pun intended, keying in on that. So I don't know. It's something that I don't think there's a large, and maybe we go back over the course of the season and we'll do an end of the season episode and kind of look at some of the statistical trends that defined what Georgia Tech ended up finishing. But I just sit in the camp of, if this is a group that can offset what Haynes King can do while he still continues to put up good numbers in the run game, respectable numbers in the run game. He averaged 11.9 yards per touch, and those were 7 carries. And like we mentioned earlier, I think it was Dr. Bob said you only had 1 sack, so it was a loss of 1 on that play, I believe. Yep, Corey Robinson. We'll talk about him in a second too. So you only had 1 sack, so you start to look at some of the accumulated yards. So I just think that this offense is at its best, yes, when Haynes King is running the football. And we'll take maybe a data point from the next 3 games and keep an eye on that. So, when Jamal Haynes is outgaining him, it allows him to focus more on the pass game, but it also makes it a true option threat in the sense of these zone reads and these read options and these speed options that Georgia Tech is going to run, and the multitude of different kind of RPO packages they're going to put together. And when all of that is clicking, we've seen this offense be at its best. When the RPO is in effect and a defense says, okay, we have to respect Haynes King running the football, whether it's Dante or Jamal Haynes, we got to respect that as well. Oh, and now they've got a receiver that is among the conference's best. And I would say, I think we could say Eric Singleton Jr., is probably a top 15, top 20 receiver in the country. You got a guy like that. So all of these things to say is it brings a new light to what teams previous years didn't have to respect the weapons because Georgia Tech didn't show it. Now they're starting to show it. And I like that. I like that a lot. And, you have Evan Dickens. You've got other players, too, that I think are going to step up in a year or two. But if I'm kind of looking at some of the numbers, obviously, Haynes King throws for 208, 23 of 30, very efficient, quarterback rating at 145.9. This Georgia Tech offense averaged 6.7 yards per play, 6.9 per rush. Once again, just, coming into this game, you knew Virginia was not going to be very stout up front, and they took advantage of that. And I think that's something that we all wanted to see in this football game. It's something that we all wanted to be able to look at and then look at the box score at the end of the game and say, okay, we thought we were better on paper in this team, and we proved it. And it really wasn't too much drama necessarily. And I think a lot of us, for people that sit more in my camp of show me and I'll believe type of thing, you have cleared one of the hurdles of winning back-to-back games, getting to the winning record for the first time in the regular season, I believe, since 2018. But you've also cleared the hurdle of no emotional letdown. And so, look, you've got to clear another hurdle. And I think that this team has the good mindset. I think it's Brent Key trying to implement something in the sense of, it's great. It's a great win. We've got to wipe it clean. Now we got to go on the road and play Clemson, which is going to be a fantastic game that I can't wait to preview this week as well. So altogether, really like the offense performance. It's a group that kept their foot on the gas pedal. We saw Zach Pyron get some time there at the end too. I think that's an interesting, thing that we can continue to keep an eye on. Tech goes 8 for 15 on third downs, nearly 30 first downs, 29 first downs for a group. I mentioned 305 rush yards, 209. Time of possession was really, really nice, 34:09 in that. They won that by over 11 minutes. 2 of 2 in the red zone, no turnovers. Guys, a lot of people feel like I'm a little bit more harsh on what Georgia Tech needs to do, and I think it's because we have to see them find a sustainable way to win. And here's your example. You went against an opponent that was lesser than you, and you dominated, and you provided a recipe now of saying, hey, if we play like that, every single time we go out, we're going to give ourselves a great chance to win a football game. And arguably, if you play like this over the next 3 games, you're going to give yourself a chance to win 2 of the next 3, I think, in a very good fashion. And if we're just honest with ourselves, you play like this in that third and final game of the season, you're going to be competitive. And it's going to be something where I think is really, really going to be very interesting to continue and to keep monitoring, obviously. So I really like what the defense or the offense did. I think it was a great performance. I think they were able to impose their will. And then, like I said, keeping the foot on the gas pedal. I wanted to get this stat in here for you because I love looking at these. We talked about red zone attempts, 2 of 2. They came up both times with touchdowns. So that means they're getting 6. That's huge. When we talked about, let's go all the way back to the South Carolina State game where there was a little left to be desired, honestly, with what they did. And so to be able to kind of see that come into fruition, very, very big. That's where I wanted to go with there. And then probably one more thing. We look at the big plays. Man, the way this team can just continue to gash you, and it's not 3, 4, 5 yards. We go through, they had 9 rushing plays for a gain of 10 yards or more. It started with Jamal Haynes on an 18-yard carry, Jamal Haynes on an 11-yard carry, Haynes King for 10 yards. Haynes King for 34 yards. That was the touchdown run. Jamal Haynes for 12. Haynes King for 29. Dante for 33 touchdown. Dante for 10 touchdown. And then Jamal Haynes 43 yards for a touchdown. The way they're gashing you, being able to do that, and also staying balanced. Because I think one of the concerns coming out of the bye week for me was we knew this passing attack could do some things against teams. But as you got into the tougher games that you thought you might be facing, which like a North Carolina team that had experience, maybe not Virginia, but maybe Clemson, and then maybe a Syracuse and maybe Georgia at the end of the year, I think the concern for me was, okay, can the run game provide enough stability to it and enough balance to where you feel like teams can't just sit, 4, 5, 6 guys back in coverage and say, all right, try to pass here, Haynes. And I think that for me has been it's a big development, and it goes back to the Boston College game. Brent Key said, we've got to play better around Haynes King. Haynes King's a really good quarterback. I know there was a lot of debate over in our Discord. Make sure you join it if you haven't already about, is he a top 10 quarterback in the country, top 15, whatever the conversation was. I think that he is definitely on his way to being one of the better quarterbacks, maybe I would say one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country on the national landscape. As Tech keeps winning, that narrative could change. But that being said, really, really love the ability to do that because, you had the 9 carries of 10 yards or more, 200 yards obviously gained on those 9 plays, which is absolutely nuts. But also you had obviously the 58-yard pass, touchdown pass to Eric Singleton Jr. Then you had a 15-yard pass to Dominic Blaylock. You had a 22-yard pass to Dante Smith that he was able to take, which I love him out of the backfield. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really think that Buster Faulkner. Ralph, what was the running back for Georgia? Kenny McIntosh. When you watch, and I know a lot of people don't want to go back and look at this, but when you go back to what Georgia did with Kenny McIntosh and Buster Faulkner in that offense, I kind of feel like Buster Faulkner in this Tech offense views Dante as the same, as a guy that can, definitely run in between the tackles, but it's not too shabby in his ability to be kind of that pass catching back as well. Yes, Jamal Haynes is going to be the speed first guy, but I know a lot of folks don't want to go back, and I get it, the rivalry and all that kind of stuff. But if you just look at it strictly from a film perspective, and you look at like what they want to do implementing wise, it's one of those things that I really like Dante Smith in the passing game. He had the 22-yard catch as well. And then you had Abdul Jannah there for 18 yards as well. So offensively, you played really, really well. Loved what this group was able to do. And I think they kept their foot on the gas pedal. Before we move over to the defensive side of the football, I want to make sure you check out Section 103, the presenting sponsor here of our Georgia Tech show. They do great stuff, and they've got a great deal going on along with us. Crowded booth for 10% off your order. Not repping them tonight, which you best believe I will later in this week. Fantastic stuff. The best gear that you're going to be able to find if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Because look, you go to the bookstore, you go to all these other places, it's obvious that, they don't really have what you need, and they don't have some of the good classic stuff. Section 103 is the place to go. Presenting sponsor, we appreciate them over there for partnering with us. Let's talk defensively here. Obviously, the big storyline was that Tony Muskett left the game with injury. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't. If I'm a Virginia fan, I don't really mind the performance that Anthony Calandria put together for Virginia. I mean, it's a guy that passed for 200 yards. And if we're being honest with ourselves, I mean, Virginia ran for 119. They averaged 4.1 yards per carry. But, Grady Brosterhouse? Is that what you wanted to know? Yeah, Grady Brosterhouse. Ralph was a big fan of Grady Brosterhouse. Perfect. 276.4 quarterback rating on the day, by the way, too. 1 of 1 for 21 yards. But there was a lot placed on Calandria's shoulders in the sense of, the run game wasn't explosive. It was there for Virginia. And I think you got to give them credit. Like, Virginia was put in a bad spot. I will say this, too, about Virginia. It kind of feels like Virginia is heading down a slope that Georgia Tech was 4 years ago. That's where I kind of feel like they're headed, because they're now, 2-7? It is what it is. But Calandria, I mean, look, the kid's a good runner. I think he's going to continue to grow in that offense and what he needs to do. I think he did the best he could. Virginia is really lacking a lot of talent, and they're just deficient in a lot of areas. Malik Washington's a really nice piece for them on the outside. Guy had 11 catches for them. Grady will be the next Matt Schaub. A lot of us would like to be the next Matt Schaub there, Bryce. I mean, what did I just call you, Bryce? Ralph. Jeez. Malik Washington, though, 11 catches for 109. Averaging 9.9. He had 15 targets. So it's a guy that obviously Calandria felt comfortable going to. But I think when you look all together, yes, Kyle Kennard added to his sack total. Georgia Tech had 2 sacks in this football game. They limit third downs. I mean, everything that this defense needed to do to have an elite game, they did. I mean, and I know it could be both sides, but Georgia Tech they had 8 penalties for 85 yards, but I think that's the happy medium of what I was talking about. And I would like to go back and look at the breakdown, how many were defensive and how many were of the offense side of the ball. But I think that when you go back to the Wake Forest game and the amount of penalties that Georgia Tech had in that game, I don't think that was a performance that you could say, hey, this is what we can do week in, week out, and we're going to win football games consistently. I believe it was like 12 penalties, 13 penalties for over 120 yards. 8 for 85 shows me aggressiveness, but it also shows me some discipline. And I think that was huge for this group to kind of have as well. So, I think it's going to be something that when you look at this group all together, defensively, it's the performance you wanted. I mean, they averaged 4.1 yards on the ground, 10.1 yards per completion, And look, we got to be realistic. I said this, 2 weeks ago or last week. This defense is who it is. I'm not going to get on here. We're not going to blast the defense week in and week out. At this juncture of the season, you're getting ready to go into week 11 of the regular season. You are who you are. Like, the tape's out there. Nobody else is walking through the door. This is the group that's on the field. This is the scheme. They're not going to change the scheme up drastically in the middle of a football game or in the middle of the football season like this. So for this group that I think is still maybe a below average group, I think they've gotten a little bit. I don't think they're necessarily bottom of the barrel in everything, but I think they're below average, group. For them to hold an offense that, yes, it isn't fantastic, but to do what they needed to do, you hold them to 3 of 12 on third downs. You hold them to just 119 rushing yards. I think that was something they really, really liked on 69 plays. 1 of 2 on fourth downs. You forced 3 turnovers, and then you sacked them twice. And you had 6 tackles for loss in this football game. I think that, for me, a defense that is what it is, like I said, you have to make the momentum shifting plays. You did it, and you won a game on the road, which, Georgia Tech just has a knack for at this point. It is what you asked of them. Like, yes, we can be nitpicky about certain things, but when you hold a team to 17 points with the offense that Georgia Tech has, you feel really, really good, I think, about where the group is as a whole. You know what I mean? I think that's something that getting text galore in here. Matt Brook, I just got your text. Matt Brook watching live. If you're watching live, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. Like 30% of the people who watch this are actually subscribed to the channel. So it means 70% of you, all you got to do is hit the red button down there. That's all you got to do. It's completely free. It doesn't even cost you anything. Just helps out the channel and lets you know when we're live again. So altogether, love the defensive effort. And I know someone pointed out in the comments earlier, this is what I liked about it. I have been, and look, it's, still not where you want it. Getting Eddie Kelly back, I think, is huge. He had a tackle for loss in this game and a pass breakup. Eddie Kelly is going to be very, very interesting. Kyle Efford. I've heard the kid's name pronounced different ways. Efford. I'm pretty sure someone pronounced it Afford one time in a press conference when we talked about him when he was signed as a recruit. He led the way in tackling. So there's a linebacker issue. We've talked about it, for far too long. But what I do believe that we found out is that you found a guy that plays aggressively, understands his role, and is physical at the point of attack. And for what this defense needs, we're entering 11 weeks into the football season. It's what you have. No one's going to walk through that door. I like his effort right there. Jalen King with a nice game, too. 4 pass breakups for Jalen King. I've talked about King. I think he's a little bit of a freelancer at times, but he is a guy that Jalen King's a guy that kind of reminds me in a little bit of a way of Charlie Thomas. He's just always seemingly around. I think Charlie Thomas, I'm not trying to make comparisons here in the sense of like who was a better player. But I just think King just reminds me because he's literally always around the football. And that's huge. I think that's really, really good. LaMiles Brooks, 4 tackles, 4 solo, had 2 pass breakers in this game. Kenan Johnson back healthy. KJ Wallace, starting to get some of those guys healthy. Micaiah Scott, the 3rd leading tackler in there. So I think altogether that this defense rounded into form with where they are. And it was really big for me to see, you go down to this is something that's really interesting. Virginia, here's a telling stat and I want to put these together for the full season. Dr. Bob, if you got the time, I understand you're already busy, man. Maybe you could do this for us. Georgia Tech's issue this season has been getting off the field on third downs. So what did they do to Virginia? Okay, so we know the number was 3 for 12, 25%, and that's where we sat with the percentage-wise. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this, okay? The average third down and distance to go for Virginia was 6.2. Now, they're going to quantify a third and long as anything really 3rd, 7, and more. I think that third and 6 is a pretty advantageous spot on average to be sitting as a defense. Third and longs, which they actually quantify it here as 9+. I would say 7+ is going to be my third and long. It's it's going to be very, very interesting. 1 for 3, Virginia was in this category. 0 for 4 in third and short. So on the down and distances where you felt like Virginia said, okay, you know what, you probably got a play call here, you're going to get it. Georgia Tech held them 0 for 4, a big 0 for on the scoreboard there in the box score. When on third down, the average down and distance to go was third and 6.2. Virginia, on average, on third down, got 3.9 yards. It's a nice recipe for success. Really, really nice recipe for success. Also, too, when they're passing the ball, they were just 3 of 7 for 16 yards. That's a huge stat that I think this group was able to come on. And then, obviously, I believe the 2 sacks that came in this game were also on third down. So the absolute total of what you saw out of this offense is something that and defense, this was the complete football game that you were looking for. And so it leads us to the final point here tonight. Where do you go from here? I mean, you look at the next 3 games. Clemson has become more winnable in recent weeks, but will say this. I do think their win over Notre Dame did a lot to boost the momentum and the morale of that team. They needed that. I'm not sure for that fan base. And Ralph, I'm going to pull up Clemson's schedule here. Ralph's got it. Ralph's going to pull up the schedule here for us. I know that obviously they play Georgia Tech. They play South Carolina. I believe it's North Carolina. They also play the final 3 games. I think it's Tech, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So altogether, I think that beating Notre Dame for them, they had to have. So, that game's going to be really interesting. I'm going to take a deep dive into that this week and really kind of look at some of the numbers. I'm going to dance around this. When you talk about pure running back, Ralph might not like this. I think Phil Maffa is the better pure running back for them. Will Shipley is the probably better guy out of the backfield to do kind of multifaceted. If I am Garrett Riley, with the amount of injuries they've had at receiver, I'm probably going to line up Will Shipley like in the slot at this point, to do something to kind of get something going. So I don't think, and I see down there, GT Boner says, they're looking ahead to UNC. I don't think Clemson's going to be really looking ahead to anyone. Tech, UNC, and USC East. Love it, that, Ralph. It's a winnable football game. You haven't won, 8, 9 years you haven't beat Clemson. You came close last time you were up there. The Jordan Yates game, that hurt big time, not being able to win that football game. But that being said, when you have a group that, to me, turned around the season 2 weeks ago, I don't even know if I'm going to give a prediction at this point of what I think Georgia Tech's going to do on Saturday. I'm going to give you some keys. I'm going to give you some things I think they have to do to win the football game. What I don't think I'm going to do is to give you some necessarily a full-hearted prediction because, the spread's 15 points. I'm telling you one thing, I'm not touching that line. That's not going to be on my book when I'm doing that because I don't even know what to think. I don't really know what to think. So I think you have to take this one game at a time. If you're Georgia Tech, obviously, you've got Syracuse. You feel good about that. I thought Syracuse was better. And then, it is what it is. You can't overlook anybody. It is going to be interesting. And then you have Georgia at the end of the season, which, still think you're outgunned, out-talented, as are about 125 other FBS programs. But I think you're a much more competitive football team than you were last year, and you never know what can happen. So I think all together, when you look at this going forward, you are 5-4. I sat with this team, the range of games. If you go back and watch the preview episode, I think my official prediction of the season was a 5-7 season. And I said, for me, it feels like 5-7 to 7-5. That's where I say. And I think I even said absolute best case scenario, everything clicks right, probably 8-4. Maybe. But I think 5 6, 7 and 7-5 is kind of where all of us kind of sat too with the schedule predictions. So I'm really excited to see what they do this weekend. I think that you take out of this Virginia game, it's not a great Virginia football team, but don't let that diminish the fact that this team needed to learn how to win. It needed to learn how to go on, I understand the go on the road, but take care of business. Eliminate some of the drama that's just been around this team. And can we all say it was kind of nice to watch a football game that didn't necessarily involve last second plays or having to have big time heroics. You went in and you say, "Hey, we're going to win this football game. We're going to win it handily, and we're going to get on the flight back home, and we're going to enjoy ourselves, and we're going to get ready for Clemson." The last time Georgia Tech, Ralph, head over to our buddies over at FBS Schedules as I kind of wrap the show up. I want to know the last time Georgia Tech handily beat an ACC opponent. So you can kind of look at some past schedules here. I think it's huge. And I want to touch on this too. How about being third in the ACC? The ACC is absolutely wild in standings. We'll touch on that, Maxwell. Very good point while Ralph looks that up for us as we buy him some time. I believe Florida State clinched their spot in the ACC title game this past weekend. They were nursing a lot of injuries. No Keon Coleman, no Johnny Wilson. The other kid, too, that's from down here in Louisiana, they didn't have him either. I mean, they were using their gadget guy as a starting receiver. So as they get back healthy, obviously they're the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing in the conference. You take a look at second in the conference, you've got Louisville. Man, doesn't not winning that football game week one really sting, because now you need Louisville to win or to lose two of the next three. 2018, oh my gosh, I forgot about that football game. 2018, you beat Louisville 66-31. That's the last time Ralph, and this is per Ralph, that you beat one handily. And this is also too, Ralph, we might be able to say this. We crushed UNC in the Benz by 21, but that had a little drama. I'm talking about like a no drama game. So I guess that's what I mean. But very good point there. Very good point there. Let's take a look here. Louisville's remaining schedule, they're playing Virginia this week, and they're playing at Miami. So Louisville would have to lose those next two games. Georgia Tech has to win the next two games to be guaranteed a spot in the second spot. The problem is that you've got Boston College would have to lose another one. I don't know how the tiebreaker would work against Duke or NC State or Virginia Tech. I hadn't really looked at the schedule than that. So is there still a shot? Yes. We'll see. But I think altogether, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what this group does. Appreciate Ralph there in the comments. Appreciate, hey, almost 100 of you watching live tonight. We appreciate that. Ralph back in the background as well. But look, there's a lot of things. Ralph says 2008 Miami 41-23. And then they lost to LSU in the Chick-fil-A Bowl 30-3. Tech played. Wait, what? Oh, Dr. Bone. Wait, did Tech play LSU in the Chick-fil-A Bowl? Wow. Maybe I want to get out there. Would Tech beat LSU in a bowl game this year? I don't think so. Jaden Daniels healthy? I don't think so. Also, just shout out. You talk about atmospheres. And I'm going to say this on tomorrow night's show. For a lot of that you watch our college football shows, you absolutely should do that. Ian, I'm sorry. Ian, Ralph said the 2000, when was the Chick-fil-A Bowl? CBJ first year. Dude, Ralph, when was that? When was the Chick-fil-A Bowl win against LSU? $2008, right? Yeah. Ralph, I was what, 11? I mean, come on. I was 11 years old and did not watch Georgia Tech football. So that's that. Sorry. So apologies, Ian. That's why I didn't know. We're going to end it right here, though. Look, there's a lot of things. Georgia Tech dominates on the road from Virginia. Great things that you can take away. I really, really like the fact I just like that this team was able to go on the road, take care of business, and do a really, really good job. Fantastic. Absolutely love it. And I think going forward, you got to go take care of business this week. That being said, Tech beat Gardner-Webb 10-7. When was this? The Running Bulldogs of Gardner-Webb this year, 2008. Ralph's just throwing up random stats. I see Kevin said Haynes King is Jaden Daniels, and that's just not true. But I do appreciate it. We got to get back on the trail here. all together, folks. Really appreciate you tuning in. Georgia Tech with obviously a big win against Virginia. This was a really good win for them. You get to 5-4, and you have a legitimate shot to go to a bowl game. And hey, gonna have to do some convincing on my end. But man, if it's a big one, I think we're gonna be able to. If it's a good matchup, we might try to go. Yeah, Ralph, we'll do that as we round out the show. But hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Presenting sponsor Section 103. They do a great job with us over there. 10% use code Crowded Booth. Anything you want over there, they do a great job. This is Swarm Talk. A little bit before we get out of here, we obviously have our Georgia Tech show here in the Crowded Booth. We're going to call it this now, Ralph, because it really kind of is, and we're expanding this week, actually, is the Crowded Booth Network. We're cool with that. We got a couple different shows we're going to be rolling. We've got a Georgia Tech show. We've got, obviously, our college football show, and we've got something else, kind of a rebrand that the other two hosts don't know about, and they're not a part of, but that's okay. But it's going to be fun. They're going to be able to hop in, but we're going to be doing that weekly as well. We can't wait to bring you a fantastic show tomorrow night, recapping the wild weekend that was college football. You can tune in if you're just a college football fan or you're a Tech fan wanting to be a part of the show and the channel. We appreciate you as well. How can you be involved? Hit that like button. Hit subscribe if you're on YouTube. Subscribe to the feed if you're listening to this after the fact, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you might be getting this. We do appreciate you. My name is Bryce Koon. For myself, for Ralph Leary in the background, we say so long. Farewell. Section 103, great sponsor. Georgia Tech dominates, runs away from Virginia in a convincing 45-17 win. We'll see you later this week previewing the game, but we'll catch you tomorrow night talking college football here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.